Welcome to Forum 360. I'm Ardith Keck, your host today. Social Security is in the news now and no doubt for some time to come. It is a lifeline for many older people, and we're going to explore as much as we can squeeze in. With me is Forber Fenn, a public affairs specialist for the Social Security Administration. He has all the answers for us. So, Robert, can you explain what Social Security is?
Yes, well, thank you for having me. Social Security is America's largest domestic program and most successful program. The essence of Social Security is to be able to have a retirement income for someone who has worked, retired, and be part of that nest egg. Years ago, you may have heard that three-legged stool, for someone's retirement, their own savings, and Social Security. It was signed in law by Franklin Delano Roosevelt in 1935. And since that time, it has expanded. It has expanded to spouses benefits. It's expanded to disability benefits. As we know, there's also Medicare, which we may get into today. There's also benefits for the children involved. And again, like I said, for disability and parents and children. So it's a very important program. It starts day one when a child is born, what we call enumeration at birth. A Social Security number is issued, and then that number is used in order to track someone's earnings. So those of us who are here, as in Hudson High School, they're working, first job, that counts. So what we do is continue to add those credits up and then make an individual insured for Social Security benefits.
So where does the money come from to pay people Social Security?
Yes, it's what we know as the FICA tax. And that FICA tax, when someone works, that FICA tax is used to find out what a credit is. And every year Social Security has a dollar amount. We call them credits. This year in 2017, if someone makes $1,300, they earn one credit. Every year they can earn a maximum of 4 of those credits. So roughly this year, if someone makes $5,000, they earn their 4 credits. Whether that's their first mom and pop shop job at the local ice cream stand, or if it's someone who's working for a local company or their own business, those individuals are what we call becoming insured for Social Security retirement benefits.
So does everyone who works during their lifetime get Social Security?
Not necessarily so, unless the individual is working for an employer which pays Social Security taxes. Each year, when someone works, there's a percentage which goes toward the Social Security Trust Fund and their credits. This year, if someone makes 6.2%, that's the percentage that goes toward their Social Security Trust Fund, if you will. 1.45 is the actual amount that goes towards Medicare. Now, so all of us who are working, again, as I said this year, you make the $5,000, $1,300 times 4, rounding it up to $5,000. That individual has their credits. Over a person's lifetime, because they can get 4 credits each year, we look to see if they're eligible for Social Security benefits after an average of 10 years of work. But Social Security uses the top 35 years over a person's lifetime. So those who have worked at least 10 years will become eligible for Social Security retirement benefits.
Unless you're public employees retirement system. We were, and I threatened to have my husband go bag groceries in the grocery store because we didn't have enough Social Security to receive it. And the State Teachers Retirement Fund, which is what I worked under.
That's correct.
So are there other exceptions to that? Or?
Yes. As you said, PRS, Public Employees Retirement System, STRS, State Teachers Retirement Systems, those systems do not pay into Social Security. Similar to police and firemen or other city workers, those individuals may not pay into Social Security. And that means that they are being paid based upon their own earnings through the state. That means when they work, they weren't paying any Social Security taxes. Now, the majority of individuals, it's around, if I would say on average here in Ohio, at least 5% would fall into that category that you mentioned, STRS, PRS, police and firemen. But the majority of individuals do pay into Social Security.
Okay. And they have their own retirement system, so
That's
they
correct.
really don't need Social Security, but I felt like we needed it.
That's right.
Anyway, how do you get information about Social Security?
Yeah, well, a variety of ways. One, hopefully, individuals, they can contact me. I go out to the public, whether it's through a church, synagogue, or a company, whatever it may be, and I give presentations about Social Security. Another source is they can go to our website at socialsecurity.gov, G-O-V. And I must emphasize that G-O-V. There are other websites out there, just like many times someone will say, I was on the computer, on the internet, and I researched something. Well, where did you get that information from? Somewhere on the internet. Well, if you're going to get the actual information, true and relevant information comes from socialsecurity.gov.
Except it's really SSA.
Yes, well, sometimes you either use that acronym,
Okay.
SSA, but if you were to type in just SSA, you'll get a plethora of other links. And so what I like to do is I make sure I say socialsecurity.gov, G-O-V. Look for the G-O-V to make sure you're getting accurate and current information from the Social Security program.
Okay. How about a phone number?
Phone number is 1-800-772-1213. Now, that is a national number. We have people who will call and say, can I speak to the head of Social Security or the president? That is a teleservice. That means I could speak to someone right now in Lakewood, Ohio, hang up the phone, call right back, and it'll be someone in Phoenix, Arizona. So it's a national number which they can more than likely answer any of your questions that you're looking to receive the information on.
Okay. And there is a building
There is a
that
building.
you can go to.
That's right. Here in the Akron area, we have two offices, one downtown Akron, 2 South Main Street, and we have another one which is on Romick Road, which is 2166 Romick Road, and then we also have an office in Medina. Now, in the state of Ohio, there are other offices, but that's more local, and those individuals can be contacted by going into the local office. The local office hours are 9 to 4, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. every day, except for Wednesdays. They're 9 to 12. Now, before anyone who's watching us gets all riled up, 9 to 12, I want that job, cake job, right? No. Well, individuals, the employees, still have to work their full 8-hour shifts, but on Wednesdays, that's when we have to process more of the workload, paperwork that we have to get accomplished. So 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., Monday through Friday, except for Wednesday, 9 to 12.
And what is the retirement age to get those benefits?
Yes. As I said earlier, on average, someone works at least 10 years. They're eligible for Social Security retirement benefits. Their earliest age an individual can file for Social Security retirement payments is at age 62. Now, I want to make sure that the viewers know that the full retirement age is based upon someone's year of birth. So if someone's born between 1943 and 1954, that individual's full retirement age will be 66. If you notice, I'm emphasizing the word full, because at age 62, it would be a reduced rate. On average, let's say at age 66, someone was eligible for $1,000. However, they decided to file at age 62. That $62 amount will be around 25% less. So at age 62, I'll get 75%, $750, or if I waited to 66, I would have gotten $1,000.
But there's a 67
That's right.
age.
So you caught onto that, excellent. And so those who are born after 1954, it goes up in increments of 2 months. So if I was born in 1955, it's 66 in 2 months, 1956, 66 in 4 months, all the way to 1960. Anyone born after 1960, his or her full retirement age would be age 67. So age 67 would be the new full retirement age for those individuals.
And that has changed in recent years.
Well, that law was actually made in 1983-84, but it became effective in 2000. And so now we're seeing those individuals come of that age.
Can you work at the same time as you receive Social Security?
Thank you for asking that question. And the answer is yes. It just depends on how much work. So let's use the example that we just mentioned, age 62. If someone wants to contact Social Security, they have already earned at least their 10 years of work. You know, we're still going to use your top 35, but at least if they've worked at least 10 years, they're age 62, they can file for Social Security retirement benefits. In 2017, there's a dollar amount which we're going to use to say, are you really retired? And that dollar amount this year in 2017 is $16,920. If that person has made $16,920 or less, that person is going to be eligible for their Social Security payments every single month that they're eligible for, plus they can continue to work. Now, there's an interesting thing that happens when a person does turn 66. So let's say someone's birthday was June 2017, they're going to be 66 years old. Well, that year of them turning their full retirement age, we increased that $16,000 amount up to, in 2017, it'll be $44,880. So if I'm turning 66, I'm allowed to work more. Now, once I reach my full retirement age, if that full retirement age is 66 for that person, that month, doesn't matter what day they're born, if their birthday was June 30th, June 1st on, they can make $1 million a month. It has no effect at all. The only obligation is, of course, they need to notify IRS and maybe give you and I a call, since we can have a new $1 million friend, right? So
Suppose you get Social Security at age 62 and you've got the lower amount that you receive. Can you increase that at your final age of 66 or 67?
So you're saying that if someone had worked and received a reduced rate, and if they do return to work, that benefit could increase.
But not the work part, just the fact that you get Social Security at age 62, don't work, and can you then increase your Social Security benefits when you reach the proper age?
Understood. The Social Security payment would increase if the individual's earnings have changed. So let's give this example. Someone at age 62 files for Social Security retirement benefits. They receive their Social Security check of $1,000. That check is going to stay $1,000 unless there's a cost of living increase. Now, the only other way that it could change is if they have returned to work. Now, it's a common question I receive, well, maybe I have returned to work, and since I'm working, isn't it going to increase my check? So let me give this small example. Excuse me. Let's say someone made $1,000 every year for 35 years. Then they retired, collected a Social Security payment. Now that Social Security payment is going to be based upon them making $1,000 each year. Now if they go back to work and they started making $2,000 each year, 2,000 is more than 1,000, so the $2,000 amount will bump out one of the $1,000 years, and that would in turn increase the Social Security payment. Conversely, if someone made $1,000 every year for 35 years, retired, went back to work, started collecting your Social Security payments, and went back to work and started making $800 a year. $800 is less than the $1,000 amounts, so in that case, it would not change your Social Security payment because it would lower the average amount in which they paid into Social Security.
Okay. This is complicated, but
it can be.
the website does have a lot of good information.
Yes.
This is Ardith Keck for Forum 360, and I'm talking today about Social Security. A lot to learn. With me is Robert Fenn, who is a public affairs specialist for the Social Security Administration. And so far, you've done very well answering my questions. But how do you get a Social Security card replaced?
Yes, great. What we have, Social Security, there is a way in which an individual can replace a Social Security card. One, the easiest answer I can give the person is they can take their driver's license, state ID, U.S. passport, current, to a local office. We will use that current ID, and then we'll have that card replaced, and we will let them know around 10 to 14 days. Now, with that being said, we do have a new option on our website, socialsecurity.gov. Certain states can issue you your Social Security card through the internet. They can, for example, there's Pennsylvania and Michigan. Now I know we really don't care for those states too much. However, in that case, those individuals can go to the local, have their driver's license, state ID. They have a database. The BMV matches up with ours. An individual requests their Social Security card, and that card will be sent to them and their address. Now, this is for someone, this is for someone who is a U.S.-born citizen, and it's a replacement card, not someone who's a newborn child or in another situation. But it's for someone who just has a number already been issued to them. They no longer have their card, and so then it can be reissued to them. Now, on that note, I want to make sure I add this point to make sure that the viewers also know that there was a new guideline given some years ago now that you can have your Social Security card replaced 3 times per year. 3 times per year or 10 times over your lifetime. 3 per year or 10 over your lifetime. Now, if someone gets remarried or divorced, it doesn't count against that 3 or 10. But I just want to make sure that everyone's informed that you only can get your card replaced 3 times per year, 10 over your lifetime.
And you mentioned changing your name, getting married, changing your name, which not everybody does these days, but some people still do.
Yes.
The same process?
Yes, same process. In this case here, let's say you have an individual who's been married. We're going to request that driver's license and the marriage certificate. And those documents are what we're going to use to issue that new card. Now, there was a time in which those souvenirs, people would get a marriage certificate. It used to be a little white card about so big. And individuals thought, well, this is what I should bring. Social Security is going to look for the actual document which shows in which the minister or the clergy, what have you, had signed off. That's what we need in order to make that change. If this sounds a little confusing or what do I need, they can go to our website again, socialsecurity.gov. At the top, there's a menu button or a search. You can type in Social Security card or marriage. There's a drop down. And then you'll lead to a Social Security card. You'll see that link. And then what I like about that link is that all you have to do is hit enter and say, yes, I'm looking for a Social Security card. Are you a U.S. born citizen? Hit yes, and then it'll let you know what documents are needed that you need to bring to the Social Security office.
What about Medicare? If you're on Medicare, is that deducted from your Social Security payment?
Well, here's how this works. As long as someone has at least the 10 years that I mentioned, that person has become insured for Social Security retirement benefits, for the cash payment, and the Medicare. So let's say someone reaches age 62, files for the Social Security retirement benefits. Medicare, in this case here, for retirement payment, will kick in at age 65. They will receive a Medicare card 3 months prior to them reaching age 65. So if their birthday was in May, in February, they'll get the red, white, and blue Medicare card. On that card, it'll say the medical insurance and the hospital insurance, Part A and the Part B. That premium, Part A doesn't have a premium, Part B does. And this year, that Medicare Part B premium is $130, $134.00. So if I'm receiving a Social Security check of $1,000, then the $134 will be deducted out of that $1,000 the month that I turn age 65.
There are 4 parts to Medicare. Part D is pharmaceuticals, drugs. If you add that in, does that change the number?
Yeah, so thank you. There's Part A, that covers when the person stays in the hospital. Part B is the doctor's visits, blood work, x-rays, exams. There's a Part C, which is a Medicare Advantage plan. And Medicare Advantage plans act as if they're A, B, and D, which you mentioned is the prescription portion of it. So if someone looks to file for their Medicare benefits, if they have a insurance plan that's comparable to Medicare Part D, he or she does not have to take that Medicare Part D. If they so wish, they can collect or sign up to get a Medicare Advantage plan. That will be their Part C. If they want it, they can sign up for Medicare Part D. And as you said, yes, it does have an additional premium. Now, on average, that's around $30-some. So they would pay for their Medicare Part B and their Medicare Part C, if that has a premium attached to that, and the Medicare Part D. But most individuals, if they have that Part C again is going to cover for that Part D, so they won't have to pay for that additional premium.
We should probably mention what Medicare is.
Yes, Medicare is the nation's insurance plan for those who are age 65 and older, or if they're blind and disabled. If someone's receiving Social Security disability payments, that means that they have paid into Social Security disability, that individual is eligible for their Medicare Part A and their Part B 2 years after their date of entitlement. So they were found disabled January 2017, 2 years, January 2019, they will have their Medicare card sent to them saying they have the coverage of A and the Part B. Now, traditional Medicare covers 80%. That additional 20% is why individuals would go out to find their own Medicare Advantage plan to help supplement that.
And do you pay income tax on the Social Security payments you receive?
Now, most individuals, they're going to retire, and then what happens is if they file for the Social Security benefits, they receive that payment, taxes are going to be based upon their income. Now, of course, I do not represent the IRS. However, IRS does give guidelines, and that's if an individual is working. If their total income, after they retire or working, and they have Social Security, if their total income is over 25 grand, that individual's Social Security payments could be taxed because there aren't any taxes taken out of that Social Security check. If they're married and they're over 34 grand, then they could look to be taxed up to 50%. Now, there's different guidelines that IRS has for that. So when someone files with Social Security benefits, there's literature which we can give them, but we refer them to the IRS just to make sure that they see which guidelines they need to fall underneath. We do have a form. What happens in the real world is that individuals work, retire, collect the Social Security payment, maybe go back to work, and then they say, oh, wait a minute now, where did these taxes come from? Then they contact Social Security and say, well, can I have any benefits or any monies withheld from my Social Security check to cover that? Well, we do have a form, it's called a voluntary tax withholding. And just like Pavlov's dog, if you say anything about taxes, the Social Security will go, okay, wait a minute, we get that. And they can have increments of 7, 10, 15, or 25% held from their Social Security check to cover for that difference that they maybe took, if you will, a hit on from last year. So we at Social Security, no additional taxes are taken out, but they can request that we do take something out from there.
If you're paying into Social Security during your working years,
Yes.
how is it that they're saying something about the fact that the Social Security is going broke.
Yeah, well, you may have heard that term, what's going on with Social Security. I quickly will let individuals recognize the fact, what are they saying when they're talking about Social Security? Well, Social Security, again, like I said, is the largest domestic program that we have, the most successful one. And if you break it down and you find out what they're referring to is that Social Security, when people work, you have what's the principal and you have the interest. And right now, what they're looking at is saying that the interest is what's dwindling down. So the numbers that you're hearing, if you go to our website, socialsecurity.gov, has come 2034, 2036, depending on what economists you're listening to or reading on, they're going to say, well, that Social Security trust fund, that monies aren't there. What they're saying is that not that Social Security is not there, it's the interest is what they're saying. If there aren't any changes, that interest would dwindle. And now, if we're in 2034, 2036, or whatever year it is, when someone files for a Social Security payment, instead of collecting $1,000, then they're around 78%, they will get $780. If nothing changes in terms of our laws and how individuals become eligible and the top 10 or top 35 years in which they're eligible for, if nothing changes, those monies are still there, projecting all the way out to 2070. So I rest in saying, do I think Social Security is going to be there? Their answer is yes. Can there be any changes? Well, we mentioned about the full retirement age. Well, that full retirement age, again, was changed in 1983-84, didn't become effective to 2000. So who's to say what this or administration or next of four administrations, whatever it may be, that can make possible changes? So yes, rest assured, Social Security is going to be there.
Is somebody like Congress allowed to take money from the trust fund?
Well, that's beyond my pay grade. What they're going to do, what have you. My role as Social Security is to make sure that I let the public know. How can I file? The questions that you answered. What is Medicare? What do I need to be eligible? How do I file for those benefits? That's my role.
If you're getting Medicare or getting Social Security as a spouse,
Yes.
and your spouse dies, do you lose your benefits?
No. Now, what happens is that if someone files for Social Security benefits and they're receiving their payment, now you have a spouse. If they're eligible for a Social Security payment because of their spouse, okay, both individuals, whether they paid in Social Security or not, we're going to review that. So let's say a couple examples out of that. He paid into Social Security, she paid into Social Security, but she didn't work as much as he did. She may be potentially eligible off of his record, so she's receiving a payment. Unfortunately, he passes away. In this case here, that individual, the surviving spouse, is still eligible. Now, to piggyback off of what we said earlier, what if the individual paid into another retirement system? PRS, Public Employees Retirement System, STRS, State Teachers Retirement System. Social Security still has to come in and figure out, well, does the survivor have any other types of pension on their own? And in that case, we will still have to look at how their pension, in this case here, one that did not pay into Social Security, if it has any effect. So in the majority of cases, again, as I said, majority of individuals pay into Social Security. However, if there's someone who did not pay into Social Security, their pension could come into play, which could lower, or in this case here, not make them eligible, okay? But we will have to do that review when that time comes.
Okay, suppose you're divorced. Do you lose your benefits?
Now, this is something that I call my Elizabeth Taylor, Mickey Rooney clause. And since we're in Hudson, I'll say Taylor Swift maybe. And in that case here, and I also add Halle Berry on the list, but it's just because she's Halle Berry. What that means is that when someone's married at least 10 years, they're potentially eligible as an ex-spouse. So if someone is married for let's say 20 years, they're divorced, if that divorced spouse has not remarried and their ex-spouse passes away, they're still potentially eligible for their Social Security payments.
And what's file and suspend?
File and suspend. Excuse me. Last year, 2015, November, there was a bipartisan budget act that was passed. And what that budget passed was referring to file and suspend. File and suspend means an individual has reached full retirement age, and this individual is married. And this person says, I would like to file for my Social Security benefits in order for my spouse to be eligible. Because in the case of a current marriage, the only way one spouse can file on the other is if someone's receiving their Social Security payments, or at least has filed. So let's say in this example, the husband has filed. He may decide to suspend his benefit in order for his wife to be eligible for Social Security payment. And I must add that all Social Security policies are gender neutral. It's the same as a lady can file on a man's record and man can file on a lady's record. Now, what happens is in this file suspend, the individual has filed, suspended, not receiving any payments, allowing his spouse to receive his Social Security payment. The change in which you have heard since November 2015 is that if an individual looks to file for any Social Security payments, the new law says we have to see if you're eligible for any benefits on your own. So I gave you the example of the husband filing, so that way his wife could be eligible. And if she was 66, we would not have looked at her earnings. Now, since she's over 66, we're still going to have to look at her earnings first before we can see if we can pay her any benefits. It's what we call a restricted application in them. So.
We have reached the end of the show, but we haven't even talked about disability and numerous other things. But I thank you, Robert. You've given us a great lot of information about Social Security. And thanks to our listening audience. And this is Ardith Keck for Forum 360.
Forum 360 is brought to you with support from Electric Impulse Communications, Kim and Harvey Nelson, Rubber City Radio Group, Acronist.com, Hudson Cable, Medical Mutual of Ohio, Forum 360 supporters, and the Shaw Jewish Community Center of Akron.